Well, sorry about that. My throat chakra was playing up, talking about these dear ones. So, but some of them are very difficult, as I said before, but the majority are wonderful. I've had them really lovely times with them. This particular one, I'm not going to mention his name. I've actually written a book all about my experience with him, which is hopefully going to go on the internet. But this is a master that is known to be difficult. So, and I'm difficult. Now, the two of us had our battles, but he turned up at my bedside actually about 5 years ago. Good morning, dearest, bright and glowing and golden. And of course I was surprised. I did know who he was because he had prepared me beforehand, and I've known him for 30 odd years. But he didn't really explain why he came, except one of the missions I was to accomplish was to create with him a third energy. I won't go into details of that because that's all about that in my book. I never did know what the second mission was, and it quite wore me out, to be honest, because it wasn't until the end of the 5th year with him that I realised what was happening. Basically, it seemed to me, of course I'm not an expert, this is just my experience, it seemed to me that I was to work for him, clearing out his inner core. Now, the inner self, all his different multidimensionals, good, bad, indifferent. It was my service. I was chosen to do this. Whether he chose me or somebody else, I don't know. But I didn't know this at the time. So you can imagine how confusing it was. I'd met this beautiful being, all love and light and what have you, and suddenly there were these demons, and they were all multidimensional, different parts of his lifetimes, and they were all men, fortunately. Well, I get on better with men, you probably gathered. So there wasn't nobody actually told me what was happening, and it really was quite worrying because I had no one to talk to about this. There's no rule and regulations. There was nobody. And I asked lots of masters as to what's happening, and nobody would tell me the truth. And that's something that has worried me quite a lot, because it was really quite stressful for me. But I met all these different ones. They all looked very much like this master. Some of them were really quite horrible, actually, and I had to travel far and wide to find them. They're still in existence, of course. Sometimes they're called magical bodies, but that's a slightly different thing. These were multidimensionals, that people he had actually been and wanted to get out of, rid of, whatever. And I was chasing all over the universe with these peculiar beings. I'm thinking, well, where's the real one? And of course, a master can create a new body for whatever reason he wants at any time. So I didn't actually know what I was doing, but I knew there was something very strange going on, and I had to flow with it. I couldn't get out of it. So I've had lots of very different experiences with these beings. Some were really quite exhausting for me, and when I had an exhausting one, the real one would come in and take me on a trip, or give me a present, or give me a ride on an eagle, which I did once or twice. So I'm just going to tell a couple of little stories about it. One thing I did mention last time, and I do still get concerned about, is that these masters have not always got a great deal of integrity. They get what they want. A lot of them are very ambitious and controlling, and this one was very manipulative and deceptive. And I am a person of truth. I have to have the truth, so I was constantly challenging him. He wouldn't communicate. He simply would not communicate. I didn't know what was going on, and I used to sometimes ring the psychic lines. He said, I said, can you find out what's going on? He said he won't communicate. So it was all, you can imagine how I felt in this peculiar place with all these peculiar beings. And right in the beginning, I didn't know what was happening, but he actually downloaded, I could feel this energy coming into my mind, brain, whatever. A very negative master. Now, I understand it. I've got a little photograph in my front room of another master, and I said I felt very peculiar, horrible, a lot of darkness. And I said, what is going on? And he said it's a counterpart. Now, apparently we all have counterparts. Some are worse than others, you can imagine. So for some reason, this being, this master, grandmaster actually, that was working with me, doing his work for him, downloaded his counterpart into my right brain. I could feel it coming in, and I suppose he wanted it clearing. I don't know. I never did find out. But I know my dear friend Maharaji, he came in not long afterwards and did some tickles And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm clearing out the negative chords. So I've been attacked by this very powerful who actually said to me, what do you want with me? Well, I didn't know. I didn't ask him to come. He just appeared. So that was one instant, and that was right in the beginning. So of course that energy would attract other energy of like mind, very dark, negative. I mean, even now I cannot imagine why this master knew that I could do all this, because exhausting. I mean, my soul life was exhausted. I have been quite ill for 5 years actually. So that was one story. But he wanted my mind. He wanted to get into my mind. I'm not sure to control me. I found out. It felt to me that he wanted to experience being a woman. He was very male, and of course the divine feminine is surging. So they want to get in touch with the divine feminine. The only way they can do it, of course, is to get hold of a woman on this plane and have their way in all sorts of ways. I won't go into everything, but the mind, and obviously my mind was very valuable. I can't think why, a bit of a muddle at times, but anyway. And one night I was awake half the night telling him stories about my Italian holidays. And I'm a good storyteller, as you know, and I've written lots down. I was talking to him, and it didn't occur to me until much later, little bugger, he was actually tuning in to my mind as I was telling these stories to get a hold, to get a link. That makes sense. It did to me afterwards. I didn't know what was happening at the time. I'm just too trusting, and this is one of my upsets. I don't think I've yet forgiven it, because I was very naive and very trusting, and I allowed that to happen without really checking it out, and I should have done. And there's lots of other stuff as well. I've got. It was just that he kept. I had a lovely. Took a picture out of a book and coloured it in, put it in a frame. It was a beautiful picture. And one day he said, I want my picture taken down. So I now realise that that was another multi-dimensional that didn't want his picture in a frame, didn't want me to have it, and he turned against me. In fact, I said to him, you've got a new girlfriend. Isn't that silly? But he was very upset. So he was switching and changing and sending in different beings. There must have been dozens. And I had to somehow work it out, because he was the same identity but was showing different sides of himself. And one story the book I've written is about this experience, but also something else. So this is just, I'm trying to separate the multi-dimensional bit so that I can do a video about it, which is, I think I was asked to actually. And it was this inability to communicate, and I kept complaining. I went to the High Council to ask what to do. I called in different masters, but nobody, whether they didn't know what was going on, or they wouldn't tell me. It was all a big secret. It's out now, of course, but at the time I was getting so angry and frustrated. What is going on? Why will nobody tell me? I went to court with him. I did all sorts. I didn't know I knew all this stuff, but I was trying to survive. I was fighting for survival, and I was told the only reason I could do this was I had a great deal of love in me, and it was a love that was saving me. Nothing can happen to you when you've got lots of love. So another story I will tell you, which is, and this is perhaps the pièce de résistance. It was in Italy, and I was a nun, and he was a Catholic priest. I felt totally in love with him. I'm going to have a little sip of water. I've taken off again. But he was extremely cruel. Really nasty, because he was into this, the perfect love. And he said he'd written a book about love. But he was really, really unpleasant to me. It broke my heart. I think I've always loved him, actually, in different dimensions, different ways, different beings. I've always had this love for him. And so it was doubly difficult for me to not have a broken heart. And I still have, still part of me is still kind of grieving for that way he treated me, which is really quite bad. But this particular era, I was very much in love with him. And it was only a couple of years ago that this little multi-dimensional, Michaela, his name was, this little Catholic priest, quite small, in Italian. And he came to me, and he was so close to me, I could feel the surge. It must have been probably 16th, 17th century. I could feel the thickness of the cloth of his coat. And he came to me for forgiveness. It was really difficult because I loved him, but I'd been treated so badly. But you see, he had to move on. And I had to talk him out of being so attached to his little church, which he was. I said, you've got to come out into the fresh air. Even on the spiritual plane, they have fresh air. Come out, enjoy life, and lighten up, you know. So, and he does come from time to time. He's still around. But that was strange, to have this communication with someone all those thousands of years ago, or hundreds of years ago, and for him to come to me for ask forgiveness because he couldn't move on, you see. And you see, a lot of these beings that I came across couldn't move on without the forgiveness and without understanding and all that stuff. So it's been quite, well, you could call it a spiritual challenge for me, really, quite difficult to still hang in there. And of course I live on my own, and I had no one to talk to about this. I got one or two friends. Well, I haven't got one or two friends. I've got my friend, just my computer for me. He's quite psychic, and occasionally he'd come up with something. But some of these beings, I had to work really hard on praying to let them go. One chap came and stood in my mind. He wanted a divorce. I didn't know who he was. Thank you, madam, he said. So it was really quite fascinating in a way. So if any of you come across these things, you know, it's a service I had to do with this master. And as I was saying last week, we shouldn't have to be used like that, because it did take a lot of light, a lot of my energy, and I was very ill at the time with something called CFS. I'd done a lot of house moving and I was exhausted. So I said, look, please, can you give it a rest? They don't care. They got to get the job done. He was very, very ambitious, controlling, manipulative, and I know he's listening, but it's just it's individuality, and I did the best I could. So I guess he achieved his aim. I don't know, and I'm trying to recover, and I still occasionally speak to him, and there's another reason for all that. So anyway, I think that's probably enough for today. I don't think there's anything else. I must remember not to try. I don't read it. Yeah, I think that was the thing. Was I just want to say, don't, if these beings approach you, which they will, especially women, they love the women, or they don't really, but we have the divine feminine. We're carrying a very important energy. Don't take any message from them. Ask who they are, and if they what they want, all that stuff, because they are calling on the feminine to achieve their aims. So, and also, if you feel someone is tampering with your mind, they're very clever. I mean, I don't think it's necessary to hurt you. It's just they want to be here, and they can't be here. This is a very important time. So, anyway, on that note, I've got to dry up now. So, hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, do ask me. I'd love to hear from you. And I've got the playlist, which is doing ever so well, actually. I'm really pleased with it. So, on that note, love you and leave you. And take care of yourselves. Just keep your boundaries, and no matter how nice they seem, they're very clever. Some can impersonate very, very cleverly. Just watch your back and don't trust too easily, as I did, and got into trouble. Well, not trouble, but it took a lot out of me. Okay then, dear ones, God bless for now. Take care of yourselves. Bye.